Hey, I finally finished One Piece's Arabasta saga, and although it's taken me a while to get around to this video, I have to tell you, I've spent this time thinking a lot about One Piece, and it's become one of my favourite stories of all time, and I've barely even scratched the surface. Let's talk about this amazing arc. Quick side note, the format of these videos is gonna change slightly to talk more about my thoughts of the series rather than just do a recap of the events. I hope you enjoy. Let's start off by talking about exactly what the Arabasta arc is. Throughout the last few arcs, we've slowly learned about Vivi's home, the kingdom of Arabasta, and the trouble it is facing from Crocodile and the rebels. There is a war going on in her home, and Vivi has been trying to return to put a stop to it. The instigator of the war is Crocodile, the first warlord of the sea that we have come across, and he is a brilliant antagonist for this stage of the story, showing just how big of a threat he is. His plotting, his control, and his strength are truly something that the Straw Hats have not faced before, and it's so clear throughout the arc just how humbled they have been. Crocodile paints the image of how big One Piece is, and how the scale of the world that the characters have entered is nothing like they could have imagined. He's a fantastic first big antagonist, where Arlong was a more personal antagonist to Nami and the rest of the Straw Hat crew. Crocodile is much more of a world-altering antagonist, while still being personal to Vivi, showing that the story is not just about the Straw Hats anymore. On the other side of the wall, we have the rebels, which I found to be a pivotal part of this arc's narrative. They showed how the people of this world will stand up to oppression, will fight for liberation, which I know is going to be a big part of the story moving forward. But not only this, they also show the humanity of the characters, that they can be easily misguided and misled by those in power. The rebels are fighting against the royalty because to them, they are the villains, but all along it is Crocodile and Baroque Works pulling the strings. Arabasta is an arc that is focused on manipulation and misdirection, and the strength and understanding that is required to defeat this. And this strength comes through the ideas of hope, which is represented in three main ways. Vivi is the catalyst of this whole arc and encapsulates the message. She drives the crew through her will and want to save her country. She convinces them to join her and is driven throughout to achieve her goals, just like the Straw Hat crew. But despite her drive, she isn't blinded by it. In this way, she's the mirror of Luffy, but where the latter wants to explore the seas, her goal is to remain rooted to her country. Vivi still doesn't pursue her goal at any cost. She knows when to pause and reevaluate, like when they decide to get Nami help instead of rushing to Arabasta, or when she chooses to save the crew when they are captured by Crocodile. Vivi is the hope for Arabasta, the variable outside of the machine that can put a stop to the rebellion. When she does, she decides to stay, sacrificing the freedom and the rush that her adventures with the Straw Hat crew gave her, instead choosing to save her home and make it a better place. Following this, we see the dedication and the love of the Straw Hat crew, telling Vivi she will always be one of them, in one of the most iconic panels of the series. If you're watching this channel, you probably like reading. And if you like reading, then you probably need things to read. Well, I've got just the site for you, Sci-Fire. Sci-Fire is an absolutely wonderful bookstore that specializes in sci-fi, fantasy, comic books, and of course, manga. I've been using them for absolutely ages because they not only have great pricing but also fantastic customer service and top-notch packaging. Like, look at this! If you want to use Sci-Fi yourself, you can head down to the link in the description and use the code NERDLOUNGE for 5% off every order. So get yourself some books, get yourself a discount, and support the channel at the same time. Back to the video. One of my favourite moments in this arc, and One Piece so far, was found when the Straw Hats reached the town of Yuba, where they were hoping to find the rebels. Instead, they find the town abandoned, save only for Toto, the father of the leader of the rebellion. Whilst everyone has left, feeling betrayed and abandoned by their leaders due to the drought that is plaguing Yuba, Toto had stayed. Toto has hope that the king is not evil, that he did not bring this drought on the land, and Toto digs every day to find water. One of the main themes of One Piece is dedication, and this is another clear example of that, and there is nothing that Luffy respects more than dedication. Luffy helps Toto, digging long into the night to help him achieve his goal, and as a thanks, he is gifted this water, which he treasures going forward. Luffy is a character that is often shown as gluttonous, but he has such clear understanding of the importance of certain items, situations, and resources. This whole event is such a simple moment, a moment of hope and determination that continues to solidify Luffy as such a compelling protagonist. Speaking of Luffy, of course, Luffy is once again a show of hope and determination. Who would have guessed? But Arabasta offered something different because this was the first time we got to see Luffy lose. After they escape from their capture, Luffy stays behind to fight Crocodile, allowing the others to escape. He's completely outclassed, tying into the scaling of these villains that I talked about earlier. Crocodile is far more formidable and skilled than Luffy could have imagined, which is a key lesson for him to not underestimate his opponents. Whilst a lot can be achieved through pure willpower, there is always a limit, and Crocodile was this limit. But of course, Luffy comes back. And he learns and he betters himself. And he loses again, but he comes back and he learns and he betters himself. Luffy's resolve is unstoppable, but these fights show that he cannot win by that alone and he must become better. And yet, he still acts as the hope, both for the crew and, in this case, for the kingdom of Arabasta. Obviously, we need to talk about the fights. Not counting Luffy versus Crocodile, there were 4 main fights in this arc. Nami versus Miss Doublefinger, Usopp and Chopper versus Mr. 4 and Miss Merry Christmas, Sanji versus Mr. 2, and Zoro versus Mr. 1. The main thing about these fights is how we see the Straw Hat crew grow during them. They develop, they get better, and this growth is what is going to make the format of a battle shonen more interesting. Usopp and Chopper improve by learning to work together and synergize. Nami improves by learning to trust her crew, as she struggles to work out how the weapon Usopp provided her is anything more than a party trick. And finally, Zoro improves by learning to cut through steel, increasing his swordsmanship. These fights and the climax of the arc do so much for the character building in this story, especially in an arc where fighting is such a frowned upon solution. The whole arc compels the reader to understand the difference between good and bad, and to understand that despite two sides disagreeing, the rebels and the royals, that doesn't make either of them bad. And it's this understanding of the catalysts of rebellion that make Arabasta such a compelling arc. It's so reflective of things we see in the real world, of politics that we see in the real world. And the cast of characters we follow during this arc just seems so human. And that's one thing that I love so much about One Piece. The characters feel alive. They make mistakes and they're not perfect. And that's what makes them so enjoyable to read. Next up, of course, we got to talk about the top 5 moments like we do in every arc, starting with number 5, meeting Ace. Ace is a character that we were introduced to in the first part of the Arabasta saga, but during this part we get to learn a little bit more about him, about what he's doing, about who he is. And he is Luffy's brother. He's trying to follow the pirate Blackbeard and he's part of Whitebeard's crew. And this is all information that builds into the greater world building of One Piece and also increases the mystery about Luffy, his childhood and his parentage. I love the world building part of One Piece and this was a really important part of that in this arc, so this is why it's my number 5 moment. Number 4 is Luffy's first defeat, which I think is such an important moment for One Piece and this saga in general. Up to this point, Luffy has been such an unstoppable force, and this is the first time we watch him get humbled and get defeated, which allows for him to grow, allows for him to use his mind to problem solve in a situation and to know that brute strength isn't going to beat every every issue. And he doesn't just lose, he really loses, and it's a shocking moment, an unexpected moment that really solidified Crocodile as a villain and solidified Luffy as not so much of an unstoppable force as he thought he was. For number 3, I've had to break the rules. I've put 2 moments in my number 3 slot because I couldn't choose between them and I didn't want to knock off either of the other ones, and it's my video so I can do what I want. So the first one I've got is a friend's sacrifice where Bon Clay protects the Going Merry and the Straw Hat crew, and then the other part of this is Yuba and Toto and the water, which I've already spoken about. Bon Clay protecting the Going Merry was a moment for me that was very small, very unexpected, but really hit home. It showed that the Straw Hats putting their hand out and offering friendship to a person they haven't met before does have positive repercussions. Yes, they are pirates, but as a whole, as a crew, they are good people that aim to help others. And this is a moment where they get repaid for that kindness. Bon Clay is part of Baroque Works. He is a villain. He is part of the enemy. And yet, because of the friendship that the Straw Hat crew showed to him, he decides to help them, to save them. He protects the Going Merry and then sacrifices himself so that they can get away. And I think this moment is important because this is a story about pirates and there are a lot of evil people in this world. And this is why the Straw Hats are different. And this is why the Straw Hats will go further, because they have that goodness in them. They have that friendship. And this is what happens when you extend that. For moment number 2, obviously, every top 5 moment seems to have a Zoro moment, but this is Zoro slicing through steel in his fight against Mr. One. Zoro's journey so far is my favorite to follow. He has this goal of becoming a master swordsman, and in that journey there are things he's going to need to improve, things he's going to have to defy, and things that he's going to have to do that may not have seemed possible before. And one of those things is being able to cut through steel, and in this arc he is put in a situation where that's exactly what he has to do. And in the moment he develops, he grows, and he gains what he needed to win that fight. And it's such a hype moment. He's on the edge of death and he comes back and he destroys Mr. One. And yeah, Zoro is always the hypest moment in One Piece. So far he is my second favorite character. Love seeing him. Can't wait to see how much he improves going forward. And finally, number 1, which is probably going to come as no surprise to anybody. You know me, I like the emotional moments. It's the Straw Hats Forever moment, where the Straw Hats pledge that Vivi will forever be part of them, and if she ever chooses to, she can join back with them. And I just love this moment. Again, it shows the Straw Hats' friendship, it shows their dedication to one another, but it's a moment as well that is rooted in Vivi's commitment to her country. She is sacrificing her dream and her freedom, for lack of a better word, to look after her country, to rule, to make that a better place. She's making a decision not out of selfishness, but for the greater good. And this is something that I think the Straw Hats will learn from, that might affect their decisions going forward. They might think more about the greater good as opposed to their selfish wants and goals. Not saying that they are selfish or that they don't help people, but it might grow that thought process to a larger scale. And the moment itself where they all raise their hands in the air, I just think it's a perfect show of why One Piece is so good, because even small moments like that where it's not a death, it's not anything of massive emotional impact, and yet it gets you emotional, it gets you a little bit teary-eyed. The Straw Hats are such a good found family, and this was a moment that just proves that even if you leave, you will always be part of them, and I just absolutely loved it. And finally, to finish off the video, of course, we've got to do the Straw Hat ranking. To be fair, I don't think it's changed too much, but we'll go through. At number 7, picking up the rear, you're gonna hate me, it's Sanji. Whilst he did have some good moments here, he still hasn't quite taken over the other ones for me yet, but I know that coming soon we get a little bit more backstory on him, so I'm interested to see where he goes up the ranking. Number 6, we've got Nami. Number 5, we've got Usopp. Number 4, we've got Chopper. Number 3, and this is a temporary one, we've got Vivi. This arc was centered around her. She was such a compelling character. I absolutely loved every moment she had in the arc. She is number 3 because of temporary status, because number 2 and number 1 are obviously Zoro and Luffy. They are just fantastic characters, and Vivi won't overtake them for her temporary status. But yeah, that's the Straw Hat ranking. I don't think it's changed too much, but as always, I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes throughout the rest of the arcs. That's my thoughts on One Piece's Arabasta arc, which closes off the Arabasta saga. The next saga, I believe, is called Skypiea, and I have already read a little bit of it, and there will be a video coming in the next couple of months about that. I'm absolutely loving my journey with One Piece, and I can't wait to carry on reading. It's such a phenomenal story, and I can't wait to take you guys along for the ride. But now it's your turn. Let me know in the comments down below what you thought of the Arabasta arc slash saga, and where you'd rank it against the other arcs slash sagas of One Piece so far. While you're down there, you can hit that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to be alerted every single time that I upload if you want to see some more One Piece manga, books, or comic books content. If you want to support the channel and buy some manga, books, comic books, anything like that, you can head down to the link in the description to Sci-Fi using my code NERDLOUNGE to get yourself 5% off and supporting the channel at the same time. And if you want to support the channel more directly, you can subscribe to my Patreon, which gives you a few exclusive perks like getting to watch my videos ad-free, and that massively helps the channel. It allows me to get new equipment, and we're looking to hire an editor. So yeah, that would be awesome. And last but certainly not least, if you're not sick of seeing this face today, you can check out one of the videos on the left and right of me. They've been selected just for you. But if you're done for the day, I want to thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye bye.